campaign, which is a larger nonprofit. They fight against preventable disease and extreme poverty around the globe, founded by Bono, but we can put that in parentheses because that's a turn off to a lot of people. But Vanessa, you were saying one of the things that is happening in the Chicago area to acknowledge World Malaria Day is a screening of the film Mary and Martha, which stars Brenda Blethyn and Hilary Swank. And it's a fictional story, but it's about mothers from the global north, as we'll call it, who are touched by malaria when their children die. And you were talking about how this film shows how malaria affects us as a global community.
Exactly. And so the mothers actually raise awareness, and they go to their political representatives to support funding. And so that's a dynamic that exists now in the U.S. We support funding for a program called the Global Fund, and it fights AIDS, tuberculosis, and malaria. And it has saved an estimated 8.7 million lives.
So how preventable is malaria, Vanessa?
Malaria is actually very preventable. It's one of our low-hanging fruit. There are many prevention methods such as bed nets, indoor spraying, anti-malarial medicines, and treatment for pregnant women.
So is the antidote where they just handed out mosquito nets and that dropped malaria by such a large percent? Is that true, or is it just keeping mosquitoes off people? Is it just that simple?
Well, yeah, malaria is actually a mosquito-borne disease. So if you do have bed nets, that does actually lower the incidence. And what you're finding is that many times in developing regions, particularly in sub-Saharan Africa, many people cannot afford bed nets. And so these programs are bringing in bed nets, they're bringing in anti-malarial medicines, and it has actually dropped malaria by 1/3 in the last decade. So it does work.
Wow. So what else do we need to be, when you say awareness, we've always kind of made fun of that word a little bit on this show.
Yeah, because awareness to us, people living in America is like, what? We don't have, mosquitoes carrying malaria, or do I have to be aware if I go overseas? But what can awareness to an American do to help a situation where it doesn't affect us?
Right, and that's an excellent question. Awareness means using your voice to express the need. And so the way that I raise awareness as an American and how it's impactful for somebody, let's say in sub-Saharan Africa, is by using my voice to talk to my legislators, my political decision makers, to support this funding. Because if you think about it, the funding is coming from the U.S. And so this investment is really making a difference in the lives of people. So as Americans, it's important that we use our voice and we speak up against these issues, and we ask our representatives to prioritize the funding for malaria prevention.
Well, and these are one of the solutions that I see, global health solutions that are so cheap as well. Because when you're funding and we have something like domestic issues, but when you hear the cost of these medicines, of these preventions, it's so minimal.
How much is it?
You're absolutely right. A bed net costs approximately $5. And so this is something that is, like you said, very cheap. It's low-hanging fruit, and it's something that we can definitely prevent just with the investment of funds. And so we invest less than 1% of our federal budget goes into international development programs like the Global Fund. But it's really making an impact in the lives of many people in these regions.
2 questions. I'm sorry to throw 2 at you, but it's pretty easy. Now, will this $5 take care of a family or just an individual?
So what you find in many of these regions is that the families are protected under these bed nets. One bed net can actually impact 5 people. And so unlike in the developed world here in the U.S., where it's one bed, one person, in many of these countries you'll find children that share a bed. And really, children under the age of 5 are the ones that are affected the most by malaria. So one bed net could actually multiply the amount of lives that it saves.
Great. Okay, second question is, with the sequester, all these budget cuts coming down, is that 1% of the World Fund that we crank out as the United States, is that going to be affected at all? Do you know?
Right. So with the sequestration, that's a very great question. It actually went into effect, and it did secure funding. So it actually passed legislation, and they did secure funding for programs like the Global Fund. And it was all due to our advocacy. So as Americans, we used our voice. We told our political representatives, hey, we want you to secure this funding. And they listened. Once the sequestration came into account, they secured the funding for the Global Fund. So we're very happy about that.
All right. Well, USA, USA, USA.
Vanessa, thanks for joining us on the Morning Amp. Tomorrow at the DePaul CDM Theater at 14 East Jackson, there is a free screening of Mary and Martha. We have all that info at facebook.com/Vocalo. Vanessa, happy World Malaria Day to you.
Happy World Malaria Day. Thank you guys so much for having me on, and thank you for raising awareness on this issue.
All right, Vanessa, have a good day.
You too. Thanks.
Bye. That's Vanessa Avila with the One campaign. You can also find more information about that at facebook.com/Vocalo. Yeah, that's the kind of stuff that, like, when you hear the individual, like, I was looking at the World Food Program yesterday because of the crisis in Syria and these just floods of refugees having to leave everything behind and moving into other countries. Like, the cost, you know, it's like that cost to feed people for a day is so cheap. And
that wouldn't even put a dent in your snack that you just had a second ago. Like,
yeah.
the amount of money it costs for you to
spent on
at
my
the vending
snack.
machine.
Yes.
Like vending machine money almost could feed like 2 or 3 people.
Yeah. Global poverty is real. I mean, it's. I think that this is also like, I was just reading, like, Ben Affleck is doing some kind of publicity stunt.
$1,500 a day?
Yes, $1.50 a day.
Oh, it was $1.50 a day.
Yes. Oh, wait, you thought he was going to try to live off $1,500 a day?
And I was like, well, I guess that is low.
He's like really going to take a cut.
I mean, for like a Ben Affleck person, so it was $1.50 a day.
Yes.
Okay.
He's been trying to do this thing where you have $7.50 to spend for the week.
Come on, Ben Affleck.
But I mean, but it also just shows like the scale of the economy in the U.S. I mean, I don't know where you could even buy food for a week for $7.50.
In the garbage can.
Eat a bag of rice for the week.
Honestly, when I should have read that harder. I really thought he says he's going to live off $1,500 a day. and honestly, I was like, well, I guess for a celebrity movie star, that's horrible.
I'm only going to fill up 3 of my cars with gas this week.
That's a good. I was like, well, damn, that's pretty good.
Yeah, no, it's 1.4 billion people across the globe live on less than $1.50 a day. So,